Okay.
Okay, everybody. Well, welcome. We're glad to have everybody here. It's a smaller group than normal because I know it's July. July and August are not the uh, the best months, but we have tonight a really interesting presentation on Recollector software, which I forget again who it was, but several months ago, one of our members, if not two, mentioned it, and um, and I bought it and started using it, and it's very good. I like it a lot. To keep track of my collection, you can keep track of your cards. You can it automatically will assign a unique number to each record. You can connect it to photos. You can it's very flexible. You can edit the fields and create different things. So anyway, tonight we have Jeremy Poole. Jeremy is a map collector, and he created the software. The nice thing about the software, one of the nice things, one, it's $49, and that's a lifetime uh, cost. So once you buy it, you have it. But then when he makes updates, you get those included. So every now and then you'll get a when you um, launch it, you'll get a message that there's an update to load in. Um, the instructions that are in there that come with it are very good, but they're, especially at the beginning, there's a couple of times I think I called, spoke to Jeremy, and a couple of emails back and forth with questions on how to do things. It's like anything else. Once you do it, then you know how to do it. So Jeremy, I'll let you take it away and tell us all about it.
Well, thanks very much. And yeah, thanks for having me here. Um, let me, before, I'm going to mostly be doing showing you my screen so I can actually do sort of a live demo of the software. But before I jump into that, let me just give you a very quick background of where Recollector came from and what its goals were when I created it. As Michael mentioned, I'm a map collector, and at some point I decided, hey, I really should have a good record of what's in my collection. So I went out there and looked to see, well, what kind of software is out there for cataloging personal collections. And I really didn't find anything that I felt hit the spot. There were a number of quite inexpensive packages, but which had no flexibility at all. You just had to sort of fit your data into what they were giving you. You couldn't tailor it in any way for what you wanted to keep track of. Or at the other end, there were some very expensive packages that are available, mostly intended more for museums or institutions. They cost thousands of dollars a year. I mean, they're the kind of things that an individual collector wouldn't want to get into. So with nothing really hitting the sweet spot, I decided, well, I'm a software developer by trade, so why don't I try doing this? And so I went and designed and created what has become Recollector. And this is about 15 years ago. Um, Initially, I thought it would just be something of interest to my fellow map collectors, but a number of them said to me, you ought to let other collectors know about this because there's nothing map specific about what you've created. You can tailor it to any collection at all. And that really turned on a light. And I said, okay. So I have, in the last 15 years, I now sell Recollector to collectors of all stripes. And probably you're not amazed by, but I was amazed by just how many different things people collect, and they're all over the map. Yeah, but one of the things that makes Recollector work is that it is extremely flexible. You can tailor it to keep track of exactly what it is that's important to you to keep track of for your collection. And that's why it's been, it's adaptable to collections of anything. And there's, several thousand users now of Recollector, and as I say, they're all over the map. What I want to do is, I'm not a postcard collector, so I don't really know exactly what a typical postcard collector might want to keep track of. But what I've done is I created sort of a dummy version of a postcard collection, just to sort of show you what it might look like for a postcard collector. But I'll spend most of my time switching then to my own map collection, because then I can show you a full populated collection and the things you can do with it. Here I have, as I say, it's a kind of a dummy version of, well, what might a postcard collection look like? And this shows that I have chosen a set of fields. You know, you will know better than I whether this set of fields that I've chose to create for this collection is an appropriate set of things that you as a postcard collector might want to keep track of. Or odds are each one of you might have a slightly different set of things that you're most interested in keeping track of. But as I've already mentioned, and probably can't repeat enough, that the software is completely flexible in terms of how many fields you have, what those fields are, what kinds of fields they are. Some of them are text, some of them are dates, some of them are prices. You know, some of them are images. In this case, I have a single image field in which I have a couple of images. And so you can really do with it exactly what you want to do with it. In addition, we saw this a moment ago, the images are shown here as thumbnails, but you can, at any point you can bring up separate image viewer windows that let you look at images at higher resolution. Depending whatever resolution your images are that you attach to the records in your collection. Let's see, also notice here, and I'll show this again later, I have a hyperlink here because here's a card which happens to be in a public collection, and not public, in the Newberry Library's collection. And they have a write-up on this particular postcard. So I thought, well, it'd be nice if I could get information from the Newberry Library's cataloged information about this particular card. And so I can click on it, and in this case, it's going to open up a browser. It's going to take me to this digital collection information. And there I can see the information somebody else has about this card. So I don't have to copy all of that. I can just reference it and just jump to it by a quick hyperlink. Okay, I'm not going to switch to this particular collection. This is the only card, the only record I created. I just created one to give you an idea. But now let's switch to a collection that's got multiple records. You know, it's more a real collection. In this case, it's not my entire map collection, but it's a big part of my map collection having to do with maps that show Greenland. I happen to collect Arctic maps, so Greenland appears in a lot of my maps. And Recollector has basically three primary ways in which you look at your collection. And those are indicated by the tabs up here. The first way is a list view. And this is very much like a spreadsheet kind of view to your collection. It's really good for navigating to individual items that you want to look at in more detail. At any given moment, you can have a single record selected. And when you select it, this little thumbnail banner at the top shows you the thumbnail image for the images that you have. And in some cases, you might have, you know, more than one image. Here we have a case with multiple images for a record. The second view is what I call the image gallery. And this also is kind of a navigational way of looking at your collection, but it's focused on viewing it visually. So it's showing you the images for the individual items. And you can scroll through, and so you find some particular item you're interested in, you double click on it, and that brings you to this third view, which is, I call the item details. And that shows you all the information that you have for a given record. And it can be a lot of information. As you see here, you can see the fields that I have defined for my collection over on the left here. And you can see the different kinds of data that you can have. And again, there's a lot of flexibility. You can have a lot of information in a single field. This information field, in this example, has a couple of paragraphs worth of information. But there's kind of no limit. There's no limit on how many fields you can have. There's no limit on how much data you can have in a single field or in a given record. There's no limit on how many images you can associate with a record. That's, again, sort of part of this approach. I'm trying to make it as flexible as possible. but without trying to make it very difficult to set up. Sometimes with a lot of flexibility, you get a lot of complexity to setting it up, but I try very hard to make it pretty easy to get your collection set up and defined the way you want it. Let's go back to the list view. The list view, as I said, is mostly for navigation, and you can do things that you would expect to do in an environment like this. For example, you can resort the list. You look down at the bottom, it shows you what it's sorted by. Currently, I have this list sorted by mapmaker, and then within that by date. But let's just sort by date. And I can click on the heading of the date column, and now the entire collection is sorted by date. Interesting. So you can see from the oldest to the newest. And sorting can be actually multi-level. So if I go back to sorting by mapmaker again, it remembered the date was the last thing I sorted. So now it's sorted by both mapmaker and date. So for example, here's 3 Paul Egeda mapmaker items. And if you look at the dates, 1741, 1741, 1788. So they're sorted by date. But this makes, if I want to now go to, I know I want to look at a map by a particular map maker. Once I have it sorted, it's very easy for me to simply scroll till I get to the right place alphabetically. I can find the map maker, choose the item I want, and start to look at its item details. I could also search. Another thing that we expect to do so. Okay, I'm going to search here for the map maker named Ortelius. And I can click OK. And, oh, let me go back and do that again. There's 2 forms of search. And I meant to do this first one initially, which is to search for items where the word Ortelius appears in the field name mapmaker. And I'm going to click OK. Actually, I probably first have to go back to showing the full collection. Okay, let's do that search one more time. And it takes me to the first record that had Ortelius in the name. I can do Control A, which means search for the next, and it finds the next Ortelius, and search around again. These happen to be right together since I'm sorted by mapmaker, so it isn't so interesting. But if you've got 1,000 records in your collection, you're sorted by something else, and oh, I want to find the record that has this name or this characteristic in a particular field, or you can search for a phrase across all fields. So searching is a very important way of navigating, particularly when you have a large collection. Another way of doing, of kind of navigating is to do what I call a subset. And in this case, this collection isn't very big. I've only got 44 records. But if you imagine, again, you have a very big collection, sometimes you don't want to look at them all at once. You want to look at some group of them. So you can define one or many subsets, and these subsets become a part of the collection. They're saved along with the rest of the collection. So like I made a subset, which is this one called Iceland or Norway. So these are, the definition of the subset is that the region, which you can see as a field over towards the right, includes the word Iceland or Norway. So if I choose that, the screen redraws itself, and you can see at the top it says now 23 rows are visible because it's this subset Iceland or Norway which is being shown. And if you look down the region list, you can see indeed all of these records have Iceland or Norway in their region field. So these are sort of 3 different ways: sorting, searching, subsetting, of kind of narrowing down your focus, which is something you often do when you're working with the entire collection. Now, at some point, you have to get all this data into the program, into your collection database. And let me show you quickly how that is done. It's done via this new record button, which opens up the editor. But it opens up the editor for a new record, one that isn't already in the database. The program automatically creates this editing window for you based on the fields that you defined for your collection. And there's quite a variety in the look of the field, and that is based on the type of field. There's about 8 or so different field types that you can define in Recollector. For example, you can define image fields, and those are ones that the photos or images that you have are related to your collection. And that has a little magnifying glass associated with it. So you click on that, you navigate to an image file, a JPEG file, or something, wherever you've stored the image that you have, that you want to go with this record, you choose it, and it gets filled in. Here's my map maker field, and this has a special attribute too. You can make fields that are populated with drop-down lists. In this case, it has a list of all the map makers that so far are in my collection. So instead of having to remember exactly how to spell some map maker's name, if it's somebody I already have, I can choose them from the field. If it's a new map maker, I enter it in, and the next time I come in there, that new name will be added to this list. Date fields have a calendar picker, so you can do it in that way. This is a kind of field where you can choose multiple elements and add them in. Other fields are simply ones you type into, and they can either be like this one, which I call a one-line text field, or they can be a lengthy text field, a multi-line text field. And this is like you saw in that information field in one of those records, where it was multiple paragraphs. And if I really want to enter a lot of information, I can even pop up a much larger window in which to enter lots and lots of text. Like I say, there's no limit on how much text you're allowed to put in. You can also have fields like this one, which are kind of a yes, no, or binary on-off kind of field. So there's a lot of variety in the way these are entered, but it's all automatic. You don't have to say, oh, I want this field to be this wide, and I want it to be ordered here. Happens automatically. Let me just quickly show you. Let me go to, let's see. Let's go back to the full collection. And I want to go, I think it's this one. Let me check. Yeah. I want to go into the editor for an existing record. And what you'll see is exactly like what we saw before, but instead of being all blank, it's now got all the data that you have. And so if you decide, oh, I need to make an update, I got something wrong, you simply edit it, and it just takes you in here, and you can make any change you want. You know, I say Greenland, southern part, or whatever. And I make that change, and here you see Greenland southern part has gotten into the record. You'll also see here in this record a bunch of other examples of what I call hyperlinks, ways that you can enrich the information in your collection by, rather than just having plain old text, you can have other kinds of information. Let me just show you a couple of those. This Sabin here that you see, this is an example of a reference work. This is a reference book, which in the case of map collectors often have lots of books about maps. And if there's a book about a map that talks about the map that you have in your collection, you might want to refer to that book in your data. But you don't necessarily want the full reference to that book to show up every time you want to refer to it. In this case, I want to just call it Sabin by the author's name. But here, by holding my cursor over the word Sabin, I can show the full reference information. So there's a way to enter kind of a footnote style reference paragraph, if you will, and have it show up. And you can either have it show up like that, or you can click on it and show it as a footnote at the bottom. Here, I have another kind of link. This refers to another map in the same book that this map came out of. So it's a reference to another record in the collection. Like if you have multiple postcards that show the same building, let's say, or the same part of some town, and you have, well, you have those multiple ones in your collection, you want to refer from one to the other. So here's another card that shows this building. You can make a hyperlink that will take you from the one record right back to the other. I can jump back to the one I was at. So that's a second kind of link. You can have links. Well, I won't show you this because we saw that before when I was showing you the very original postcard example, how you can have a link that takes you to a web page. And I have an example of that here. I also have a link here to a video. You can add links to video or audio clips. As if I turn that on, it opens up a viewer that in this case runs a video that happens to relate to this map. It shows how the map fits in the book and can be within an folder. So that's kind of, you know, don't necessarily want to use that kind of feature, but it's there. Another way to enrich the information you have. Here's a reference to a document. I have a document about conservation that was done on this map. And I don't want to re-enter all the text about the conservation. I have a piece of paper, so I just scanned it, and I'd like to be able to bring that up and look at it. So if I click on that, it's going to bring up, there was a PDF file that happened to be the document, and the program knows, okay, PDF files are opened by Acrobat. So here it opens Acrobat and shows me that PDF. So there's all these ways of kind of enriching the information that you have. Mention a couple other things, so I won't necessarily show them unless people express particular interest in hearing about it. There's a fair amount of reporting capability. You can generate very nice formatted reports that describe either your entire collection or a subset within your collection, and it will generate or send to a printer or generate a PDF that's very nicely formatted. It's a very good way of sharing collection information with other people. Another person might not be a Recollector user, but you've got your collection and they're interested in your collection. You want to share it with them. You can simply generate a PDF that shows them your whole collection or part of it and send it off to them. One thing I didn't mention, the fields you see here are in some order. Well, that order is not fixed. That order is under your control. You can control both the order within this item details view, which is also the order that's used inside the editor. You'll notice this too, going down these two columns. It's the same order as in the item details view. And when we were back in the list, there's also a set of fields in an order, and you can control that too. So there's nothing that ties you into having to see the fields in any particular order. You can see them in whatever order you want, and you can change it on the fly at any time. You can switch between different field orders. You can also compute totals for your collection. So for example, there's a summary window that has information about your collection. And down at the bottom, all the price fields and all the currency fields whose type is currency, or actually all the fields whose type is numeric. This one I just did as an example. It's kind of silly to measure the perimeter, some of all the perimeters of all the maps in my collection, but just shows you can do it. The program comes with a bunch of templates when you're creating a new collection. It does not have a template for postcards, but there's probably I believe there's an art template or a book template, which might be pretty close. There's also a generic template that you can use to get started, which has some, a dozen or so basic field names and types, things that almost any collection would have. But you can then go and you can add your own fields, or you can get rid of the ones that you don't like that come from the template. As I say, it's completely customizable. And you also don't have to decide everything up front. Let's say you've been collecting postcards for a while, and then you realize, oh, started to get some postcards that are in some other language. But you didn't create a language field, but you'd like to have it. You can go and add a new field even after you have data in your collection. So you add a new field, call this language, and all of a sudden, all your records have a language field. They'll initially be empty for the records that are already there, so you'd have to go back into the editor and add in the language for the ones, for the ones that were already there. But then as you go forward, every new record you add, when you click a new record, there will now be a language field. You can fill it in. So you're not tied in at any point to the design of your collection. Recollector also includes a backup and restore capability. Obviously, you can use whatever kinds of backups you want for backing up valuable stuff on your system, but Recollector has its own way of generating a whole backup folder for you. So at any point in time, let's say you're doing a lot of data entry and you really want to make sure it doesn't get lost. Every so often you can go to a backup and it'll create a full copy of your collection with all its images and store it in a separate folder, and you can put that out. You can put it in the cloud if you want, or on an external USB drive or something to just keep it safe, even if a disaster strikes your hard disk. Now, your collection itself, normally the default is that it's stored somewhere on your hard disk, like in your documents folder. But in fact, you can store it anywhere. You can store your collection in the cloud. That's what I do. It both provides a way of accessing the collection from multiple computers, as well as the security that even if my computer dies, my collection is safely off in the cloud. Another thing I didn't mention, I should have, this is the Windows version that we're looking at, but there is a Mac version that is exactly equivalent. It has all the same features. So I maintain both a Mac version and a Windows version. It doesn't matter what you use. And even if you have both a Mac and a PC, you can actually access the same collection data from either computer. The data format is compatible between platforms. There's a few other features that are in there that, only a small fraction of the collecting of my customer community uses, but they're there just in case. For example, there's a capability of generating a set of pages for a website. If you want to create a website for your entire collection and put it up on the web, it provides a way to do that. It's not the most modern looking website, but it's there. Let me see if there's anything else I want to mention. Yeah, there is also an app for the iPhone or the iPad or an Android devices that lets you take your entire collection with you on a mobile device. And try to show that. If I switch back, I could try to put wrong phone. Try to put the phone up in front of the camera just so you can see what it looks like.
Jeremy, that's a great feature because a lot of us go to postcard shows, and sometimes you might be at a postcard show and see a postcard and you can't remember if you actually have that in your collection or not. So being able to look at, view the collection on your phone.
Right. You don't have to carry your computer to the show. Yeah. Let me stop sharing for a second and see if I can get this to work to just briefly show you. So this is kind of the moral equivalent of the list view on my phone, in which all the items are shown, but not the full information, just I have it showing an image and one or two chosen fields that I ask it to show along with the image. If I press on any one of these, it takes me to the item details. And it's the full item detail. So the same information you would look at on your computer, it's all here on the phone as well. And there's even some of these capabilities like, this one here. There's that little reference to a reference book. So it brings along that information as well. The data that the phone is looking at is not the same data that you're looking at on your computer. There is a step you do have to go through to export your data from the computer to your mobile device. But it's done through Dropbox, and it's very seamless. So I mean, only takes a moment to decide, oh, I've made a bunch of changes to my collection. I've added a lot. It's time to update the version of the collection on the phone to sync it up with the basic database. And that is, that's how that works. When I started to design Recollector, I made a decision I didn't want the data
Later.
in some very proprietary binary form that no other program could access. So the way your data is stored, it's stored in a text format. It's called XML, which is an industry standard for structured data, which this kind of structured data. And so, I tell people ask me sometimes, well, what happens when you get run over by a bus? I mean, what's gonna happen to my data? Well, your data is fine. The program comes with a way to export your data. You can export it to Excel, you can export it to a text file, or as I say, your data itself is in an actual readable format, XML, that can be opened right in a web browser. So there's nothing kind of, secret, hidden, or unusable outside of the program itself. There's also a capability, if you're concerned about security, of encrypting your data. So if you don't want if somebody gets hold of your database file and you don't want them to be able to, anybody else to know what's in there, you can encrypt your data. And every time you open up your collection, it'll ask you for your password and it'll decrypt it, so it'll show it to you. Not a lot of collectors use that, but there are some who do. I think that's kind of where I want to stop. As Michael mentioned, the program has a very, most people tell me, how come it's so inexpensive? Well, it's really inexpensive because when I designed it, I really wanted it to be useful, not just for myself, but for other, initially map collectors and later on other collectors. And so it was not my main job. It's not the main thing I depended on for, putting food on the table. So I wanted it to be very affordable for serious collectors. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to charge $49 for it. And that price has been the same for 15 years. I have not raised the price. It's not an annual subscription. You have it once, you pay for it once, you have it forever. And that gives you, as Michael mentioned, free updates anytime there's an update, as well as customer support, should you need customer support. You can try it out by downloading it and running it in what I call demo mode. Demo mode is the full program. Nothing is left out. The only restriction is you're not allowed to have more than 25 records in a collection. But that should be enough for you to get a chance to try it out, see whether it works for you. And if it does, then you can pay the $49 and get the license, put in the license key, and all of a sudden it's unlocked and there's no limit on how big the collection can be. And some people also ask about the size of a collection. How big can your collection be? Can it have 500? Can it have 1,000? Well, I have a fair number of collectors who have over 10,000 items in their collection. Collections can be very large. And as you see here, there's really no limit on how much you can have in the field or in a record. So it's really not limited in that way either. There's a user's guide, which really fully describes all the features of it, and that's available online. Let me quickly bring up this. Here is the main web page for, finding out about the product and downloading
Recollector.
or ordering it. So that's its name.
Recollector.
Recollector. Let me actually put up here. That's the website. If you want to go to it to learn more about it, or to download it in demo mode or anything else, that's where to go. So I think that's really, oh, by the way, I should have mentioned also the app that runs on the phone, that is free. There's no separate charge for that. Now you could download that without having the main program, but it's kind of useless. You can only have your collection data in it by exporting it from the main program. So that's why I decided I'm not really losing anything by letting people have that for free. So you can just go to the Google App Store or the Apple Play Store or whatever. Maybe I have the names backwards, but and look for the Recollector app and you can download it to your mobile device. So
Jerry, you want me to show my screen so people can see what my collection looks like, a postcard collection?
sure. So I'll stop sharing.
Let me, not sure how to get rid of this. Anyway, so you can see you can see on the left there's an ID number, so you can have it automatically. You can control it, but it will sign the next number when you go to put in new records. It'll automatically sign the next number in numerical order. Now for mine, I have a description of the postcard, which is usually beginning of what it says on it, a category for what type of card it is. I have restaurants and airports and things. The location I do by city and state separately, in case I want to select them by everyone in a certain state. I put the publisher in. I put the number that's on the postcard if they have numbers. So sometimes there's cards of the same topic, but at least the numbers are different. And then the image. So there's the image gallery. You can see all the. Now, when you go to, I'll show you how you put a new one in. So you go up here to new record, and you get a blank screen. You click this box here, automatically will sign the next number from the last one. Then you can just type in a description. I got a postcard of Susan Lane. Category I've got set up in different categories, so you can pick a category. I have a couple cities in here, but you can override that. You can type in any city you want, but state, I think I have New York, a couple. Publisher, I got a few publishers in here. Kurtike, the number you type in, and then the images are easy to put in. What I do is I only put the front side, but I scan them in and put them into a folder. And when I scan them in, I number them 001, and it automatically does them 001 I may scan maybe 30 or so at a time. So then when you call it up, and then what I do is I go in and I enter in all the information of the cards, then I scan them. Then I go back, and when you click on this magnifying glass here under the image field, it will come up to this folder I have with all the images. So they're all numbered, but when I put new ones in, they'll all be zero. Well, here's one right here that I haven't put in, 001. So I'll look and see what that is. I numbered the back of the cards on the pencil. So then I come in here and I'll just change the name of the image to the number and then a little description. And then you double click on it and it will put it in the record. Now I can show you that, and then you just click OK, or you can go on to the next record.
Can you hold your cursor over that 011 postcards.jpg?
Oh, look at that. I didn't even know that.
That's how you can test that it really works and is pointing to the right one.
Comes up. Now, I'll show you how you can do it, because how easy it is to change something. So I'm going to click OK. Actually, I'm going to click cancel. But I'm going to show you where that was a card I put in, but I didn't scan. So I scanned it just the other day. And you'll see on the left here, where these little cameras are. So you can see the ones that don't have an image assigned to it.
Oh.
And if I go down to the, let me find that one that, I think it's in here. I guess if I click, will it sort them by?
It won't sort by that. If you sort by your images, all the ones that are blank will come at either the top or the bottom.
Oh, images. No, it didn't do that. Well, I think, there. Okay, so that's Rochester. I know what that is. I know I got to put it in. So I'll show you how, if I go to Rochester, wherever they went, and go through, it should be in there. I think it's in there. There it is. So this is the one. It's the Civic Center. So I have all the information in there, but I hadn't signed the photo yet. So if I click on it and go to edit, I get back to the data entry screen. I'll click on here, right at the top of my list, double click on it. Whoop. I got to change the number's 1263. I just type in the number, the record number, and then I put the description, brief description, and so
Just
now it's in there.
Whoop.
What did I do? I go back a minute. I got to
It was down, it's just down below, I think.
what did I do? What was 1263? So I got to find it now in the list because once I changed it, it sorted it. And there it is. So you just double click on it and it assigns it to the record. And so now you click OK. And now it's in there. It's filled in. So that's the one I hadn't put in yet. So anyway, so that gives you an idea of how easy it is to change things, how easy it is to attach a photo to it, and what it looks like with the postcards. So anyway, so that's a little how you can see how I did mine. Like Jeremy says, you can create fields, all the fields you want. You can put in the drop down the what shows up in the drop down menus. It's easy to do, and you can make changes as you go along. So let's open up to questions. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Although Jeremy, thank you because you answered many of them during the presentation. Okay, now you were mentioning that it's using an XML format for the database.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I have an existing database in another application, like I've got one in FileMaker Pro, which you've probably heard of, which will export into an XML format.
Actually, you would not do it by exporting to XML format, because even though XML format is standard in its overall structure, each program that uses XML format will want that XML formatted, with the specific named fields and elements. What you would do is whatever format you have it in now, you would want to have whatever program you're using now, put it out in either a spreadsheet format, XLX or XLSX, or a file form, what's called a CSV, separated values. You can create a collection from either a spreadsheet or a comma separated values file, and you can also import to an existing collection data that's in that format. And you can export as well from your collection into those formats.
Okay. All right, well, that makes sense. Now you kept referring to Dropbox here. So I understand Dropbox was recently acquired by Google.
Was it? Oh, I should read the news. Well,
I didn't know that either, but somebody told me it was. And I
Yeah.
understand it was,
No,
and I
I
don't know
hope you
what
don't
your,
change the terms because Dropbox, at least up to now, has allowed you to have a free Dropbox account. There's no, you don't say, oh, I have to pay $50 a month for Dropbox. I don't want to have to do that. Dropbox has a free account, which I think allows up to 2 gigabytes of data stored on Dropbox. So it's perfectly adequate for this purpose of transferring it. And, you know, there must be such a huge number of applications out there that now rely on Dropbox's interfaces and whatnot that I doubt even if Google takes over it, that they'll blow that out of the water. I certainly hope not.
yeah, I don't know what they're planning to do, or they're planning to integrate it with G Drive or what they want to do. But, okay, so, okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask about is how the IDs are assigned. Because, you know, I mean, I saw that, you know, in the demonstration where you can just assign it, you know, you just do the next numerical sequence type of thing. What if you already have an ID system that you're using? Can
You
you,
can use that.
that's,
There's nothing that requires you to use automatically assigned IDs. There's nothing that requires you to have numeric IDs. If you already have a field in your collection that you think of, this is my ID, you can use that as
okay,
the value of your ID field. And you don't have to have the field named ID number. You call it whatever you want to call it. But that's the one field that every collection has to have. They have to have a field that's identified as their ID number field. But there's no restrictions on what the ID numbers can look like. Now, some collectors don't even want to use an ID number field. And I tell them, well, you have to have one, but you can leave it blank for all your records and it will never show up in your item details. By the way, the item details only shows you fields that aren't empty when it's showing you. So if you don't have an ID number, you won't see ID number in blank either. But I think it is a good idea, a good practice to have a unique identification value for each record. And one of the ways that it's useful with Recollector is that you may remember at one point I showed you how you could jump from one record via a hyperlink to a related record in the collection. Well, the way you identify the related record is by its ID number value. So if you didn't have ID numbers, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that jump to capability. So that's one reason. It's also useful if you're editing data in Excel. Let's say sometimes people want to export their data from Recollector, do some fancy machinations in Excel and then load it back in. And when you want to do that, it'll merge by ID number. So ID number is useful in several places. So it's certainly good to have it. If you don't already have it, it's nice to use the feature that lets the program assign them automatically. That's going to guarantee that you won't have duplicate values because the program says, what's the highest value so far? I'm going to add 1 to that, and that's going to be the next one. So you won't inadvertently have duplicated values, but it's, you know.
The other advantage to having the numbers, if you have 2 or more postcards of the same postcard,
mhm,
and you put them in there, it's a way to show that they're different cards because they have different numbers. And I
Yeah.
write the numbers on the back of the postcards. You know which one's which. It's
One thing I do sometimes, I have like a set of maps. I have 3 maps that form a set, and I really want to think of them as a set. I will use the same number for all of them, but I'll add a suffix like 123A, 123B, and 123C. That makes them unique, so I can do jump tos to them, but they're always short, still numerically and together. And so that's another option you have.
mm.
By the way, we're all safe. I looked up at Google did not buy Dropbox. Who told you that? But
Sorry, Google did what?
Google did not buy Dropbox. It's still
Oh, they
Dropbox
did?
separate.
Okay,
But we're
all
safe.
right.
I think that's
I
good.
have them both, so, you know, like whatever works.
I was nervous. I looked up and said, no, they didn't.
Okay, that's interesting.
Tomorrow they probably will, but right now.
Jeremy, I have a couple questions. Tom writes here in Cambridge.
I'm in Cambridge.
Sure.
too. A different
Yeah,
Cambridge, but I'm there.
I'm in Ontario.
Ontario.
And I've been a loyal user since 2017, have more than 2,200 postcards in my Recollector system. So one of the questions I have been playing with, and I thought maybe I'm just overthinking this. I have a pick list for stamps on the backs of postcards, and I'm not a stamp collector. I'm really not that concerned, but I wondered if it's possible, rather than having a pick list of text options, but visual options, i.e. the actual stamp.
Oh, wow. Well, there isn't currently the ability to do that.
Okay, that was really the question. Is it possible?
Yeah.
So, okay. And the sample postcard database you started out with,
Yeah.
there was something I had never seen before. And it was a little search box that had popped up on the right-hand side of my screen.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what that was and where it came from or how
Well,
it was created.
let me quickly look at that one, see if I can remember which thing it was. This is when you were editing, when I was showing you the editor on that one?
That I don't remember. I just know there was this search box middle of the screen on the right-hand side. And I went, oh, that's kind of what I've been looking for.
It was the
Hmm.
one you did with the one record, I think, the
Yeah, well,
postcard.
yeah, it was just the one with the one postcard record that you created.
Okay, so when you were, it was when you were in the editor for it? I
I'm
was
going
in,
to say yes because I don't remember.
uh, how about if I share again? Go back here, go back. So here's the editor. Oh, wait, yeah, so this is the editor. Um, what was this kind of thing?
No, no, no. On the right-hand side of the it must not have been the editor. I don't know if it was the list view or the,
Oh, okay, well, let's go back to the list view.
no, it
I
wasn't
didn't
there.
really look at the list view for this one record.
I don't want to take up everybody's time, so don't worry about it. It was just one of the things that would be nice is in the list view, rather than have to go to the search in
Yeah.
the bar across the top, is actually have a box in the sort of the top right-hand corner in the
Oh, yeah, just do a search without having to go to the
just
menu.
just a box there that's a search box that I could type in whatever it is I'm looking for that would search all records, not just the record. It's that one
Right.
record.
So it would be the equivalent of this, search for whatever. And,
Exactly.
oh no, sorry, that's an item details. Let's go back to the list. It would be the equivalent of searching for something and it would be in any field. And it would search for the next record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a great feature in the top right-hand corner of the screen,
Yeah.
rather than having to go to that
Yeah.
and pull
I
it
like
down.
that idea. Thank you.
I had a question, Brenda here from New Brunswick, Canada. Sorry, I just have my camera off. I just had a question. I've had some previous experience with museum collection databases,
Hmm.
and this is a difficult one, in the sense that we had this wonderful software, and then the company disappeared. It became obsolete.
Hmm.
So I'm just wondering, is there, it's a tough question for you, Jeremy, but is there a provision like beyond you, or you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of,
This is not the first time I've been asked this question.
okay, okay. It's just kind of awkward.
You
I
can
didn't
tell from
want
my picture, I'm only 15 years old. So I'm gonna last for a long time.
yeah.
No,
And then my second part of that question is what would the updates be? Is it like operating system stuff or?
usually updates are new features. And then almost all the new features are things that have been recommended by a customer and that make sense. Just like we heard, I think this section for a search box at the top right of the list view. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, I think it would be nice. And so let's say I decide, okay, I'm going to put that in. So I'll add that feature and I'll, do the testing and upload the latest version. And people who use the software will get notified. Typically once a week, the software checks to see if you're running the latest. And if you're not, it puts up a little box saying, hey, there's a newer version, would you like it? And so that's how that happens. Occasionally, not so much anymore, but occasionally there'd be bug reports, and I try to be very quick in addressing those and tracking them down, fixing them, and putting up a fixed version. So features and bugs. Occasionally, there's been some changes that were necessitated by an operating system update. You know, Apple put out a new version of the Mac operating system that no longer supported such and such, and it was something I used, and so I had to go address that. But that happens very rarely. Recollector is very vanilla in terms of its demands on the operating system. It does things that doesn't try to do very weird things. And so, you know, the manufacturers of the operating systems don't go out of their way to break most of the software products that run on their platforms. So generally, I've had almost no trouble when new versions of Windows or Mac OS come out. You know, it runs on the new versions without any problem. Oh, but back to your other question. Well,
Okay.
I can't say what will happen when I'm no longer around to support the product. I can say, as I mentioned before, that your data, though, is in a format that can be exported in a straightforward way to a very generally accepted format, namely a comma separated value format or a Excel spreadsheet format. And so there's almost no program in the world that's database like that isn't able to take in and use one of those formats as input for the data. I obviously can't promise you that you'll be able to find some other piece of software that's going to be as nice to you as Recollector is, but I try to make sure at least that we really won't be down a blind alley with no way to get out.
Yeah, and I think with the museum software that we had, it was in the same kind of, I'm not a techie computer person, but it was in the same kind of way that we exported it into another database. So, we had some help with that and it worked really well. So, that's great. It sounds like a fabulous program. And,
Let me just mention that I do have a fair number of small museums and galleries who use it. So it's not only just single person using it on their single or multiple collections for one person.
Right.
And when the first customer of mine who told me, well, I have a small museum, and it's not just me, it's me and a couple of people who work with me who want to be able to use the collection, to update the collection. And I really hadn't thought of it in that way. So this is about 10, 12 years ago. But at that point, I added a feature which has to do with multiple users working on the same collection, and provided a way to safely let's say you've got two users. You don't want one user making changes and another user who doesn't know what the first one's doing, making their own changes and clobbering the ones made by the other person. So that's something that can easily happen. So I added a feature that provides locking against that kind of situation and makes it safe, even in a small multi-user situation. It certainly is not like a big museum. It's not like, oh, I could have 1,000 users working on my collection or looking at it. It's really intended for a single user or a small number of collaborative users. But it works well in that situation.
Another
Yeah,
nice
thank
thing
you.
about it is that
Sounds very good.
since most collectors tend to collect other things, you can create multiple collections. If you have a postcard collection, you can use it for that. If you have a collection of stamps or bottles or whatever it is, political buttons, you can create a separate collection with the same software. You can create a separate collection for your other collection. So you can use it to keep track of multiple collections too.
As you probably noticed before, there were moments when I had two collections open, the postcard dummy collection and my map collection. So each collection shows up in its own window, and you don't have to only have one at a time open. You can have 10 collections open in 10 windows on your screen if you really want to. So that's no doubt going to be hard to use, but it does support multiple collections, including simultaneously having them up.
Jeremy, have there been any instances of I mean, I'm thinking of like the stuff that you've done in the map world. At this point, you have a pretty thorough database of publishers and, titles and things like that. If in the postcard world, we have our existing lists of publishers and things like that, and any, the goal I would think would be to get them into a standardized format so that, if I'm spelling Kurt Tyke without a space and then, someone else is spelling it with it, I mean, that when we try to merge the data in the future, it'll kind of standardize. Is there any world that there could be like a preset for
Yes.
postcards or?
It's a good question. I encourage customers, maybe not very obviously that I'm doing this, but I do encourage them, and you find on my website, who have collections of a certain kind, the thing they collect. If they want to submit a template of their collection, which is not just a set of fields, it is that, but it also is things like those pick lists, those lists of publisher names.
Reading.
It can have a whole, there could be a postcard collection template if somebody in your group wanted to do this, and use their own collection as the model. And that I store that on these templates on my website. So, and there's a page I have on my website where you can find user submitted templates for collection types. And then a new user can download that template and use that as the starting point. So they open it up and it's as if they have a collection already there, all the fields defined, all the pick lists defined, but no records yet because they haven't put in their data, but they've done all the setup work for you and it's now compatible with other collectors of the same sort. I don't think I have any postcard collectors who've yet submitted a template for me,
But that's why we're here tonight. That's why. Has it kind of adjacent to that question? I mean, if there were, in the postcard world, we have checklists. We have checklists of a certain publisher, or certain thing like that. And oftentimes you have collectors who, might just be starting on exaggerations or something like that, and they're looking to see what they don't have. Would the same template kind of functionality be able to accommodate like a checklist that does include the attributes, but once they get it, then it just fills in the blanks?
yeah, that is not included in the current template model. Another thing that's kind of similar to what you're describing, I think might be similar, which also is not included, is there's no real database that knows about that whole world.
Right.
Maybe some catalogs of postcards worldwide, or countrywide, whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't want to refer to those. It's as if you had reference books that have whole listings of all the known postcards of a certain type. And you might, you might want to have software which can access that database and say, well, I don't have to type in all the stuff. I can just find it in that database and have it sucked in.
Yeah.
There are in the collecting world for very large, for collections that have very large numbers of people collect them, stamps, coins, things like that. There are such programs that include databases of the known, universe of objects that might be in your collection. And you can go out to that and pull in data. Books is another one. There's software for that. So, but there's only a few, and I don't know whether there's an online base for.
We have like the TuckDB, the Tuck data, like things like that. That it would be interesting just to see how they could, because that doesn't have the potential to.
Right. But I don't actually have a mechanism for tying into that. When I got started doing this in the map world, I did have a way of doing this because I was doing another product, which was an annual listing of all the maps that had come up for sale in dealers and auctions for that year. So there was a 20-year database that I had on a CD, and I developed a Recollector software and to put it on the CD, and it actually could tie into that and pull in data from that database. But now collecting is such a fragmented universe. There's thousands of different things that people collect. And there's all these subpopulations of people who collect some particular thing. And I can't be involved in maintaining databases of all those different areas. So it does not include that kind of capability.
One thought that's come to my mind, going back to the days when I worked in the manuscript repository, we were working on a special database, database for Civil War materials in the library's collection, and they had this program they had a record ID, but there was another category called the item or collection number, which distinguished how you would locate the particular, as a signed number, like in a library catalog. Now, can you set up a separate number? You have a record number, 01, 02 going on, but can you set up a number for your own items? The item identifier, like a call number you have in a library. Can that be added to is that something that can be added to that program you have?
It could be added to that program. Yeah, I mean, not to the program, it's added to your specific collection. You'd say, I want a field for this library reference number, whatever it is that we're describing. And so you just have that now be another field in the collection, in addition to the ID number that we were talking about before, that's a required kind of part of the collection.
Because it seems like it'd be difficult to, you can always put a number in back of your card, that your number, but the record can be a number that the system generates. But can they can be distinguished in the program? Is that what?
That's right. They would be distinguished. They would be separate fields. Another
Okay.
thing you can do, and I've done this sometimes for my maps, is for example, the Library of Congress has a huge collection of online records that describe maps in their collection. And the URL to go to one of those pages is this long, complicated URL, but buried in it, they're almost all the same as each other, except for an ID number. So if I have that ID number as a field in my collection, I can also, Recollector provides a very easy way of putting that together inside a kind of a URL that has a parameter space left open for it to push something into it to create the full link. So now when you're looking at it, not only does it show that number, but it's blue and underlined. So you click on it, boom, opens a web browser and takes you to that Library of Congress page.
Well, the Library of Congress has a very extensive cartographic collection, and they would give identical call numbers to every one of their maps, because they probably have, I don't know, million maps in their map repository. And I know when I worked in the New York State Library, we had a whole map section now. I really didn't do the catalog because I was concerned with the manuscripts of someone else was doing the map cataloging, but there were just cases and cases and cases. I don't know how many thousands of items there were there, and you couldn't find them unless you had a certain identifying number to say this is where this number would be, where this item would be in a draw.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how many maps you have in your own personal collection.
I have a little over 200, about 210. So it's not huge.
And you have to buy those great big cases to flatten them out in, just out of curiosity.
You have a flat file case, yeah. Other than the ones I put up on the wall because they're pretty.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you can access it if you have the application installed, you can access it from both Mac and PC.
I'm sorry, yes, to Mac and PC, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, how would that work? You would install it on one or the other, or?
Well, you install it on each. That is, when you go to the Recollector page and you want to download the program, it says Mac users click this button, Windows users click that button. So it downloads two completely different things. One's appropriate for Mac, one's for the PC. And by the way, the licensing for Recollector is not per machine, it's per user really. So if you have both a Mac and a PC or two PCs, you know, you don't need to buy two licenses. One license is all you need. Use the same license for both copies or multiple.
But you're saying that it can access the same data.
They
But-
can.
Like I use both. So like I'm traveling in a couple
So
of days.
if you
I'm
have,
taking my Mac with me. I'm not taking the PC. 'Cause
in that case, I mean, I would recommend it, you put your data in the cloud so that the same, it can be found in the same place, whether you use Dropbox or Google, you know, cloud services or what, I mean, any of these file sharing services in the cloud, you can access from the Mac, you can access from the PC. So
Okay.
both can work against the same data.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much,
Thank
Jeremy.
you.
That was great. I hope.
Thank you.
everybody- and Thank you
Thank
to
you.
Tom too, because Tom, you're the one I think that originally brought this to my attention last year,
Oh,
right? I'm pretty sure it was Tom.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, one of the things because I'm kind of obsessive compulsive about my collection, aren't we all? I created a data dictionary for my collection that describes each field, what it is, why it exists, what the pick lists are. And I posted that in the chat. So you can take a look at that. And it's for my very specific collection. So I have fields that in your collection you would never have. I don't record values or purchase price. God knows I don't want to know. So anyways, you can just have a look at that if you want, and it'll give you some ideas of what you could do with fields.
Interesting.
let me just mention, I think it's the latest new feature to the program, recommended by a customer, very much like what you described. It's, wouldn't it be nice to have the ability to have some place where you could document something that's not about one record, but is about the entire collection? And there's now a way on that summary window, which I think I showed you briefly, of accessing some document that's about your entire collection. So that keeps it with the collection. So like if you back up your collection, that document as well as all the individual information on each record goes with it.
Thank you.
So,
Yes,
Great
thank you very much.
presentation.
Thank you, Jeremy.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Come on.